The following is a list of locations and properties often seen on the Channel 4 soap opera Hollyoaks. Locations: Hollyoaks Village. Hollyoaks is the main setting for the series. It is a fictional village in Chester, Cheshire. The majority of the characters live in the centre of the village. However, some, for example the McQueens, live just outside. Outside the centre includes Hollyoaks High School and a number of flats in which many characters live or have lived. Also a cemetery, swimming pool and a number of houses. Many characters have been seen to go to nearby Liverpool and Manchester for nights out or to get away from village stress. The exterior of the village's buildings resembles the Chester Rose and other Tudor architecture. Hollyoaks High School. Hollyoaks High School is the local comprehensive high school which includes a sixth form. The school is one of the main settings of Hollyoaks, with several characters being students and working within the school. Previous head teachers include Govinda Roy, Anthony Bunsey, Rob O'Connor, Gary Cargill, Pete Hamill, Peter Mitchell, and Patrick Blake. Jeremy Sheffield. After his on-screen death in 2016, Patrick was replaced by current incumbent Sally Street, Claire, Annie Wallace. Other characters who have worked here include Becca Dean, Ali Bastian, Sally Hunter, Catherine Dow Blyton, Pete Webster, Richard Cambridge, Tina Riley, Leah Hackett, Ross Owen, Stuart Manning, Nancy Osborne, Jessica Fox, Kathy Barnes, Sarah Jane Buckley, Jackie McQueen, Claire Cooper, Des Townsend, Chris Dedegan, Chris Fisher, Gerard McCarthy, Leo Valentine, Brian Bovell, John Paul McQueen, James Sutton, Eva Strong, Cherie Murphy, Amy Barnes, Ashley Slanina Davies, Jen Gilmore, Amy Downham, and Lewis Loveday. Carl Collins. In November 2009, another local school named Abbey Hill was forced to merge with it. In September 2011, the sixth form college separated from the high school, making them two different locations. It is no longer featured on the program, with the sixth form college and students taking the place of the high school. The building was reverted to a high school in 2013, also including a sixth form. Current staff: Sally Street, Claire, Headmistress; Nancy Osborne, Deputy Headmistress; English teacher, Lewis Loveday; Deputy Headmaster, History teacher, Courtney Campbell; Science teacher, Nita Kaur; Teaching assistant. Current students: Tom Cunningham, Perry Lomax, Alfie Nightingale, Prince McQueen, Hunter McQueen, Lily Drinkwell. Hollyoaks Community College. Hollyoaks Community College, commonly known as the HCC, is the local college in Hollyoaks Village, supplying teenagers with further education. It is located in the central Hollyoaks Village and contains student halls of residence within its grounds. It also had an adjoining student union bar. In 2013, the student halls and adjoining bar was axed from the shows and replaced with a hospital set. The college still remains known throughout the show, with Tegan Lomax. Jessica Ellis, who also does studies through her work in the hospital, is the only known student from the village. Current students: Tegan Lomax, Ellie Nightingale, Holly Cunningham, Cleo McQueen, Harry Thompson, Zach Loveday, Nick Savage. Dee Valley Police Station. The local police station where characters are seen regularly when they are arrested or questioned by police. Characters that have worked here include PC Calvin Valentine, Ricky Whittle, PCSO Carmel Valentine, Gemma Myrna, PCSO Dominic Riley, John Picard, DC Ethan Scott, Craig Vi, DS Sonny Valentine, Aaron Fontaine, DC PC Sam Lomax, Lizzie Roper, who was originally a detective constable before being demoted to police officer after interfering with a murder investigation, and most recently PC Jason Roscoe, Alfie Brown Sykes, and Sergeant Ben Bradley. Ben Richards. One of the show's recurring characters, DS Jeff Thorpe, James Bradshaw, work here. Current staff: DS Jeff Thorpe, DS Armstrong, DS Ryan Knight. Previous staff: PC Calvin Valentine, PCSO Carmel Valentine, PCSO Dominic Riley, DC Ethan Scott, DS Dice Sam Lomax, DS Sonny Valentine, PCSO Jason Roscoe, Sergeant Ben Bradley, Diva Falco. D Valley University Hospital, the local NHS hospital to Hollyoaks Village. It is seen regularly when characters are injured or ill. The hospital set was used more from 2014, with a hostage situation at the hospital marking the start of its more prominent appearances. 3 new characters were introduced at the beginning of the hospital's more prominent appearances, while 2 original characters were made members of staff. A storyline began in January 2015 as one of the members of staff began a killing spree and began murdering regular characters who are recovering in hospital. This person was only identifiable by their hand, which was covered by a latex glove. To the audience, they became known as the Gloved Hand Killer. The person to have been murdering these patients was revealed in October 2015 to be Drive. Lindsay Roscoe, Sophie Austin. Current staff: Nurse Tegan Lomax, Student Nurse, Nurse Kim Butterfield, Student Nurse, Nick Savage, Student Nurse. Previous staff: Lindsay Nolan, Nurse, briefly a cleaner, Sandy Roscoe, District Nurse, Dr. Charles Savage, unqualified doctor, Mercedes McQueen, cleaner, Suzanne Ashworth, nurse, Dr. Paul Browning, Dr. Lindsay Roscoe, Jr., Senior Doctor, Nurse Celine McQueen, nurse, Dr. Barrington, oncologist, Lisa's Love Boat. Lisa's Love Boat, formerly the Tugboat, is a burger bar opened in 2015 by Lockie Campbell, Nick Reese, and Sonia Albright. Kizza Dean, after Sonia persuaded Simone Loveday, Jacqueline Boson, to invest in the new business venture. Lockie, who drove out of Hollyoaks by his brother Cameron Moore, in January 2016, leaving Cameron to take over the running of the tugboat along with Sonia. In June 2016, Sonia was forced to hand her share of the tugboat to the real Lisa Loveday. Rachel ADDG after Lisa convinced Simone that Sonia got her share of the restaurant out of false pretenses. Lisa then took over Sonia's place as the new co-owner. Lisa renames the burger bar Lisa's Love Boat after being under new management. Current staff: Simone Loveday, co-owner, Lisa Loveday, co-owner. Previous owners: Cameron Campbell, Lockie Campbell, Sonia Albright. St. Timothy's Catholic Church, a Catholic church that is located outside of the village and has been used since 2008. Kieran Hobbs, Jake Hendricks, was posted here before he left the church to continue his relationship with John Paul McQueen. James Sutton, Father Raymond. Colin Connor was once the parish priest. As of 2012, the parish priest is Father Des Patrick Miller. The church has held the weddings of Steph Dean, Carly Stenson, and Max Cunningham, Matt Littler, as well as his funeral, and Carmel McQueen, Gemma Myrna, and Calvin Valentine, Ricky Whittle. Various funerals have also been held in the church. Characters including Tina Riley, Leah Hackett, Warren Fox, Jamie Lomas, and Sarah Barnes, Louis Batley, and Calvin Valentine. Businesses: The Dog in the Pond. The Dog in the Pond, briefly the Jolly Roger, commonly referred to as the Dog, is the local public house. Jack Osborne, Jimmy McKenna, owned the Dog until 2008. In September 2006, The dog was caught in an explosion and was destroyed in the fire. The house above's occupants: Darren Osborne, Ashley Taylor Dawson, Steph, Carly Stenson, Craig, Guy Burnett, and Jake Dean, Kevin Sacker, were trapped inside and they nearly died. 5 other people died in the fire. Several months later, the dog was rebuilt and reopened with a new look. Darren lost ownership of the pub after a game of poker with Warren Fox, Jamie Lomas, in December 2007. However, Warren gave his half of the pub back to Jack, but not before Jack borrowed £100,000 from loan sharks, which was taken in an armed robbery. In 2008, Jack's wife Frankie Osborne, Helen Pearson, was forced to auction the pub in order to pay the family's debts. Warren and local businessman Neville Ashworth, Jim Millier, both attended the auction. Frankie paid Neville money to stop Warren from buying the pub. Neville and his family moved in, briefly renaming it the Jolly Roger. The name was changed back to the Dog in the Pond a few days later. The Ashworths moved to Spain in July 2010 and quickly sold it to Carl Costello, Paulo Passac. He and his family then moved in. Carl gave Jack the job of manager. After Carl moves to America, his son Riley, Rob Norbury, asks Darren and his family to move in and run the place for him. In 2012, building work on the dog took place off-screen after Riley decided that it was time for a major refurbishment. The grand opening took place on the 15th of June 2012, but was interrupted after the Osbournes realized that the Savages have taken up residence in their new houseboat just outside the pub. In 2012, Mitzi, Rachel Shenton, was left the dog in Riley's will. However, she left the running of the pub to the Osbournes. A number of weeks after Mitzi's departure, the Osbournes obtained the money to buy the pub themselves. On the 21st of October 2015, Jack announced to his family that he had sold the pub to pay off his debt, so they moved into the boarding house. The pub was sold to Mac Nightingale, David Easter, Ellie Nightingale, Sophie Pawley, and Nathan Nightingale. Jared Garfield, with them moving in with Mac's much younger fiancée Nita Kaur, Amrit Mahara, Mac's youngest son Alfie Nightingale, Richard Linnell, and Nathan's fiancée Rachel Hardy. Jennifer Brooke, owner, landlords, landladies, Mac Nightingale, Ellie Nightingale, employees, Cleo McQueen, previous owners, landlords, landladies, Greg Anderson, Jane Anderson, Celia Osborne, Jill Osborne, Warren Fox, Neville Ashworth, Suzanne Ashworth, Carl Costello, Heidi Costello, Riley Costello, Mitzi, Darren Osborne, Nancy Osborne, Jack Osborne, Nathan Nightingale. Previous employees: Natasha Anderson, Sarah Anderson, Jackie Hudson, Chris Fisher, Archie Carpenter, Cindy Cunningham, Josh Ashworth, Reese Ashworth, Gilly Roach, Cheryl Brady, Jen Costello, Gaz Bennett, Ray Wilson, Silas Blissett, Mercedes McQueen, Jackie McQueen, Tony Hutchinson, Sienna Blake, Robbie Roscoe, Rick Spencer, Renee McQueen, Pete Buchanan, Frankie Osborne, Rachel Hardy, Diego Salvador Martinez Hernandez de la Cruz, Nita Kaur. The Loft. The Loft is a nightclub is located within the main village. It has been owned by a number of residents including Scott Anderson, Daniel Hyde, Max Cunningham, Matt Littler, and Warren Fox. Jamie Lomas. In 2010, the club was bought by Cheryl Brady, Brona War, and silent partner Danny Houston. Darren Day. At this time it was renamed Shay Shay. In December 2010, Danny signed his half of Shay Shay to Warren. In April 2011, Cheryl sold 49% of her share to her brother Brendan Emmett J. Scanlon. keeping the other 2% for herself so neither Brendan or Warren could make a decision without agreeing or having her consent. When Warren is convicted for the murder of Louise Summers, Roxanne McKee, he signs his shares over to his son Joel Dexter. Andrew Still, Mitzi, Rachel Shenton, works here briefly as events manager before quitting. Sandhay, Kieran Richardson, was chief barman here before quitting to set up his own business. In January 2012, Ash Kane, Holly Weston, starts working there and also uses Brendan for her coursework. An old jail friend of Brendan's, Walker, Neil Newburn, also starts working there but leaves after his betrayal of Brendan is revealed. In December 2012, Brendan agrees to allow Maxine Minover, Nikki Sanderson, and Liam Gilmore, James Farrath, along with Mitzi to open up their own pop-up cocktail bar within the club. Joel leaves in 2013 after being forced out of the village by Brendan, after signing over his shares to him for £200,000 that Joel does not receive. Mitzi later leaves the village whilst Maxine continues to work there. Kevin Foster, Elliot Balchan, starts working there when Walker gets him to spy on Brendan. He is sacked after accusing Brendan of sexual assault. Sienna Blake, Anna Passy, also starts working there in March 2013. Both Brendan and Cheryl leave in 2013 and the club is put up for sale in auction, which is sold to Dr. Paul Browning, Joseph Thompson, after he decides to go into business with Claire Devine, Gemma Bissix, after Claire is arrested for kidnapping Dr. Browning and Mercedes McQueen. Jennifer Metcalf, Jim McGinn, Dan Tetzel, buys one half of the club and goes into business with Dr. Browning. They hire their respective partners Mercedes and Carmel McQueen, Gemma Myrna, to run the club. Mercedes later gives Sinead O'Connor, Stephanie Davis, a job after she quits her job at Price Slice. Shade Shay was rebranded back to the previous name of The Loft in June 2013 ahead of the club's relaunch. Dr. Browning sells his shares to a secret investor, not knowing it's Trevor Royal. Greg Wood, who later hires Freddie Roscoe, Charlie Clapham, to rob the money from the sale back from Dr. Browning. 3 months later, Trevor decides to get Freddie to set fire to the club and frame Jim for arson. He does so unaware that girlfriend Sinead and Maxine are trapped inside. However, both are saved by Dodger Savage, Danny Mac. Claire is revealed as the daughter of owner Fraser Black, Jesse Birdsall, and takes over ownership after Claire is released from prison shortly before being run over and killed by Dr. Browning. After Claire's death, Fraser's other daughter Grace Black, Tamara Wall, arrives and announces she will be running the club for her father. In March 2014, Trevor announces he is going straight and is leaving Fraser, his dodgy dealings in the loft. In April 2014, Fraser is murdered by an unknown assassin and the shares in the club are divided evenly between Grace, Tegan Lomax, Jessica Ellis, until her and Fraser's daughter Rose reaches 18 and his wife Sandy Roscoe, Gillian Tailforth, who then later hands her shares over to her son Freddie. Infuriating Grace, Tegan sells her shares to Mercedes in July 2014. Patrick Blake, Jeremy Sheffield, pushed a pregnant Maxine down the fire escape stairs of the loft in July 2014. Mercedes is supposedly killed by Grace in November 2014 and she frames Freddie in revenge for him killing Fraser. It is revealed 3 months later that Mercedes has signed her share of the loft over to Freddie. Grace remains with 33.3% of the loft, and Trevor remains bar manager. Nanny McQueen, Diane Langton, begins cleaning the loft for Grace and her granddaughter. Porsche, Twinley Lee Moore, is hired as a barmaid, but later resigns after she finds out her husband Lockie Campbell, Nick Reese, has been selling drugs for Trevor. Nana no longer works here. The loft undergoes a major refurbishment in 2015 with a new look. After Freddie is murdered by the GHK, Lindsay sells his share back to Grace and Trevor. Following Trevor's death in May 2016, Grace is the full owner of the club. Owners: Grace Black. Employees: N.A. Previous owners: Scott Anderson, Max Cunningham, Warren Fox, Cheryl Brady, Danny Houston, Brendan Brady, Joel Dexter, Claire Devine, Dr. Browning, Jim McGinn, Fraser Black, Sandy Roscoe, Tegan Lomax, Freddie Roscoe, Mercedes McQueen, Trevor Royal. Previous employees: Justin Burton, Claire Devine, Calvin Valentine, Brendan Brady, Joel Dexter, Mitzi Miniver, Reese Ashworth, Jackie McQueen, Ash Kane, Simon Walker, Maxine Miniver, Liam Gilmore, Kevin Foster, Sienna Blake, Sinead O'Connor, Sand Hay, Carmel Valentine, Grace Black, Mercedes McQueen, Dennis Savage, Blessing Chambers, Porsche McQueen, Lockie Campbell, Nana McQueen. Price Slice. Price Slice is a supermarket, which was formerly a beauty salon named Evisa. Price Slice was first seen in December 2010. Frankie Osborne. Helen Pearson began working here as a manager to bring in extra money for her family and George Smith. Stephen Roberts was given a job here while homeless. The shop owner later sacks Frankie and employs Cindy Cunningham. Stephanie Waring to replace her, and Cindy is also given the Price Slice flat. Her daughter, Holly Cunningham, Amanda Clapham, also begins working here, and when she is expelled, Sinead O'Connor, Stephanie Davis, begins to work here, but when she insults Cindy, she gets sacked. However, in March 2014, when desperate for a job, Sinead is given back her job by Cindy. In May 2014, Holly runs away from the village with Jason Roscoe, Alfie Brown Sykes, and stops working at Price Slice. In February 2015, a new manager of the shop was introduced in Simone Loveday, Jacqueline Boson. She sacked Cindy and they became rivals, before trialing both Renee McQueen, Zoe Lucker, and Sienna Blake. Anna Passy. Sienna was successful in getting the job. Simone's husband Lewis, Carl Collins, son Zach, Duane Bochy, and fake daughter Sonia Albright. Kizza Dean occasionally help in the shop. Manager: Simone Loveday. Employees: Sienna Blake, Zach Loveday. Previous employees: Frankie Osborne, George Smith, Sinead O'Connor, Holly Cunningham, Teresa McQueen, Cindy Cunningham, Renee McQueen, Sonia Albright. Esther's Magic Bean. In September 2014, Esther Bloom, Jasmine Franks, bought the coffee shop with Trevor Royal, Greg Wood, and Grace Black's Tamara Wall. Stolen money. When Grace discovers this, Esther offers to sign the shop over to Grace. However, Grace insists that she pays her back in installments instead, and later asks her to be a surrogate for her and Trevor. In July 2015, Esther gave birth and went into a coma. Her step-grandfather Jack Osborne, Jimmy McKenna, began running the shop in her absence, briefly employing Cleo McQueen, Nadine Rose Mulcairn. In July 2016, Esther interviewed Sant Hay, Kieran Richardson, for a job at the Bean. He was later employed as a barista. Owner: Esther Bloom. Managers: Jack Osborne, Frankie Osborne. Employees: Amy Barnes. Previous employees: Cleo McQueen, Sant Hay. Florist: a new flower shop opened in early 2012 in the center of the village, replacing Moob's Juice Bar. Ricky Campbell, Ashley Margolis, did work there until he left the village, and Myra McQueen, Nicole Barber Lane, started working there in September 2012 shortly after leaving prison. Until a year later, Martha Kane. Carly Norris also worked here until she left in November 2013. Teresa McQueen. Georgie Porter worked here until she is fired when the place is placed under new management. However, they sell it to Grace Black. Tamara Wall, who immediately gives it to her boyfriend, Trevor Royal. Greg Wood. As a present, he planned to turn it into Trevor's tropical fish but changed his mind and left it as a florist's. It temporarily closed while Trevor was jailed, but resumed trading as a flower shop after Trevor was released. Following Trevor's death in May 2016, it is currently staffed by unnamed extras. Previous owners: Grace Black, Trevor Royal. Previous employees: Myra McQueen, Martha Kane, Teresa McQueen. Nightingales. It was previously Atwell's Gym and the Hutch. In October 2013, Tony Hutchinson, Nick Percard, told his fiancée, Diane O'Connor, Alex Fletcher, of his plans to transform the gym into a restaurant, and by January 2014, Tony had started work on the gym and finds dry rot in the walls. He gets a dodgy loan from Trevor Royal. Greg Wood. He then goes into a partnership with Sant Hay, Kieran Richardson, after he sells the deli. Tony and Sant call the new restaurant The Hutch. It is first seen on 3 February 2014, where Trevor informs Tony that he will be taking ownership in the restaurant too. The grand opening takes place on 4 February 2014. Trevor makes a deal with Sant to import the drugs to the Hutch and release Tony from his deal. Tony eventually discovers this. Tony married Diane in late 2014, meaning she got half his properties, but she dumped him at the reception. Diane kicked out Tony and Sinead O'Connor, Stephanie Davis, and refused to let them near the Hutch. Sant continues working here and Lockie Campbell, Nick Reese, is employed. Cameron Campbell, Cameron Moore, disappears in January 2015 and Sinead is accepted back by Diane. Tony returns to work here too, but dislikes being with Diane. Sant's husband, John Paul McQueen, James Sutton, occasionally helped out here, until their separation. Cameron returned to work when he returned to the village. Tony's son, Harry Thompson, Parry Glasspool, is often seen helping at the Hutch, as is Diane's nephew Scott Drinkwell. Ross Adams, Cleo McQueen, Nadine Rose Mulcairn, worked here for a short while in 2016 as she was being pressurized for money by pedophile Pete Buchanan. Kai Owen. She was later sacked when Tony and Diane caught her stealing money from the till. James Nightingale, Gregory Finnegan, and his mother Marnie Lysett Anthony later began manipulating Diane and Scott to try and con them into giving them the Hutch. And after realizing how much financial bother the restaurant is in, they realize how easy it will be to get it. In May 2016, after Harry is kidnapped by James, Tony and Diane sell the restaurant to Marnie and James. Manny decides on the new name Nightingales. Diane leaves her job at the restaurant to work at a restaurant in France, leaving Tony behind to help Sant with his crystal meth addiction. Owners: Manny Nightingale, James Nightingale. Employees: Tony Hutchinson. Previous owners: Sant Hay, Diane O'Connor, Tony Hutchinson. Previous employees: Finn O'Connor, John Paul McQueen, Lockie Campbell, Sinead O'Connor, Cameron Campbell, Harry Thompson, Cleo McQueen, Scott Drinkwell. Savage's Emporium. Savage's Emporium is Dirk Savage's David Kennedy Emporium, where they sell antiques, house clearances and other bric-a-brac. It was formerly a laundrette, called Washed Up, Tan and Tumble, Cindy's Boutique, Sincerity and more recently, Carter and Hay Delicatessen. The Emporium opened in February 2014. In January 2014, Sant Hay, Kieran Richardson, decided to sell the deli, but when a fire occurred in the deli the following month while Jason, Roscoe, Alfie Brown Sykes, and Holly Cunningham, Amanda Clapham, were inside, it was left damaged and the buyer removed his offer. Dennis suggested to Dirk that they rent it out and they agree. They asked Sant and he let them rent it out. Dennis, Joe Tracini, Dirk and Dodger Savage, Danny Mac, redecorated the shop and the grand opening took place on the 17th of March 2014. Dennis left in late 2014 and Dodger left in January 2015. This leaves Dirk working here alone, until his wife Cindy, Stephanie Waring, lost her job and begins working here. Owner, Sant Hay. Renter, Dirk Savage. Employees, Cindy Cunningham. Previous employees, Dodger Savage, Dennis Savage. Warren's Wheels. Warren's Wheels, formerly Roscoe's Motor Maintenance, is the garage owned by Warren Fox. The garage opened on the 28th of May 2013. Joe, Aidan Callahan, Freddie and Charlie Clapham. Their younger brothers Robbie, Charlie Wernham, and Jason, Alfie Brown Sykes, sometimes help out. Joe is left in a coma after he is locked inside the council flats while demolition takes place. Ziggy begins to struggle sorting the books without Joe around, so decides to employ a secretary. He employs George Smith, Stephen Roberts. Joe later wakes up and returns to work at the garage. Phoebe McQueen, Mandup Jill, worked here for a year until her death in 2015, alongside Robbie, who was frequently absent. Ziggy Roscoe, Fabrizio Santino, used to own the maintenance shop with his older brother Joe until his death on Christmas Day 2015. In 2016, after the garage went up for sale after Freddie did not pay bills, Warren bought the garage, much to the reluctance of Freddie, Joe, Darren Osborne, Ashley Taylor Dawson, and Maxine Minerva. Nikki Sanderson. Joe quits his job at the garage to be with Mercedes McQueen. Jennifer Metcalf. Owners, Warren Fox. Employees, Freddie Roscoe. Previous owners, Ziggy Roscoe, Joe Roscoe. Previous employees, George Smith, Phoebe McQueen, Robbie Roscoe, Sonia Albright. Donovan's Salon. Donovan's Salon is a hair and beauty salon owned by the Donovan brothers. Grace Black is their sister. The salon opened on the 26th of July 2016 in the former storage space beneath the loft. Owners, Grace Black. Managers, Liam Donovan, Jesse Donovan, Adam Donovan. Employees, Goldie McQueen. Former businesses, locations, Got It Taped. Got It Taped was a video store run by Tony Hutchinson, Nick Percard, until he closed it after a cinema was opened in the village. Parker's Restaurant. Parker's Restaurant was a local restaurant previously owned by Maddie Parker, Yasmin Bannerman, until her exit. Body Boost. Body Boost was a leisure center owned by Richard Taylor, Richard Calkin. Body Boost also included a gym and a swimming pool, which was seen several times when characters would exercise. One of the most memorable events in Body Boost was when Richard's daughter Darlene Taylor, Sarah Lawrence, was pushed through a window by his partner's son Justin Burton, Chris Fountain, resulting in Darlene having to undergo surgery. The swimming pool was last seen in late 2007, when Sam O.B. O'Brien, Darren Jeffries, was taking Tom Cunningham, Ellis Hollins, to swimming lessons in a bid to impress socialite Summer Shaw. Summer Strallen. This ended with Tom nearly drowning. Previous employees include John O'Dean, Colin Wells, Simon Crosby, Simon Lawson, and Gilly Roach. Anthony Quinlan. St. Paul's Catholic Church, a modern Catholic church that held the double weddings of Mercedes Fisher, Jennifer Metcalf, and Russ Owen, Stuart Manning, and Tina McQueen, Leah Hackett, and Dominic Riley. John Pickard. The weddings were held by Father Raymond. Colin Connor. The church has not been seen since 2007, and the next time a Catholic church was called for, it was replaced by St. Timothy's, a much older church. St. Eustace's Catholic Church. An abandoned Catholic church first seen in 2008. A 14-year-old Myra McQueen, Nicole Barber Lane, was forced to abandon her firstborn son Matthew Barry Sloan at this church. The priest was known as Father Patrick. When the church was seen in 2008, it was not used. Niall kidnapped all of his siblings and his mother and held them hostage inside the church. He then blew it up. The church is now in a state of disrepair and was most recently shown in May 2015 during a suicide attempt by Maxine Miniver. Nikki Sanderson. Call center. A call center located just outside the main village. It was first introduced in July 2009. The manager was Sheila Buxton. Jessica Hall, who hired Zoe Carpenter, Zoe Lister, Sarah Barnes, Louis Batley, Zach Ramsey, Kent Riley, and Chris Fisher. Gerard McCarthy, who she then promoted. Sarah quit after her first full day and Chris was forced to sack Zach. Zoe began to hate Chris due to his bossiness, however refused to quit as she needed a job. Zoe then made Chris see himself and how selfish he was acting. He then stood down from the assistant manager's position. Sheila then promoted Zoe, who quit when she got a better job offer, leaving Chris the only one of the group still working there. In October 2009, Zach returned and Elliot Bevan, Garnon Davies, began working. Later in 2009, all of the staff quit and the call center was ultimately shut down. Evisa. Evisa was a beauty salon located by Shay Shay nightclub. The property was previously a pharmacy until it was purchased by Sean Kennedy, Matthew J. Lewis, and Louise Summers. Roxanne McKee, Warren Fox, Jamie Lomas, later owned Evisa until his apparent death, after which Spencer Gray, Darren John Langford. Spencer left the village in 2010, selling Evisa. It has since been renovated into a supermarket called Price Slice. Il Nosh. Il Nosh was the local Italian-themed restaurant. It was owned by Tony Hutchinson, Nick Percard, and its previous names include Nosh Village, pronounced Vilazh, and Deva. When it was run by the Morgan family, it is often informally referred to as Nosh. In 2010, the restaurant was set on fire following an arson attack. The fire killed Steve Roach, Carly Stenson, and Malachi Fisher. Glenn Wallace. Following the fire, Tony opened a new spa called Look Sharp, but later went on to sell it to Cindy Longford, Stephanie Waring, and she renamed it Synergy. Drive N by. Drive N by was a convenience store located beside Sincerity. The shop was previously owned by Max Cunningham, Matt Littler, who inherited it from his late father Gordon Cunningham. Bernard Latham. Max then sold the shop to Neville Ashworth, Jim Millier, and his family. The Ashworths moved to Spain in July 2010, putting the shop up for sale. The shop was damaged in the Il Nosh fire of November 2010. Drive N by is now part of Cindy Longford's Stephanie Waring Spa. Synergy. The Loft. The Loft was the name of the local nightclub. However, in August 2010, it was purchased by Cheryl Brady, Brona War, and Danny Houston, Darren Day, and renamed Shay Shay as The Loft. The club has seen several dramatic events, including Claire Devine, Gemma Bissix, being pushed from the balcony by Justin Burton, Chris Fountain, and in 2009, Claire burning the club down, which led to then-owner Warren Fox's Jamie Lomas' supposed death, when Dr. Paul Browning, Joseph Thompson, and Jim McGinn, Dan Tetzel, buy it in June 2013. They rename it The Loft. Relish. Relish opened as a takeaway in 2008. Owned by Ash Roy, Junaid Khan. In January 2009, Gaz Bennett, Joel Goonan, burned down Relish as revenge on Ash. After the refurbishment, Ash turned it into a 50s-style diner. Ash put Relish up for sale after leaving the village. However, Ravi Roy, Stephen Uppal, reopened it with Santay, Kieran Richardson, as a new chef. In June and July 2010, Relish was the victim of many racist attacks. This included vandalism, graffiti and even a smoke bomb, which was used by Des Townsend, Chris Dedegan, to hurt Ravi. Previous employees include Gas, Lauren Valentine, Dominique Jackson, Barry Newton, Nico Miralagro, Anita Roy, Syra Chowdhury, and Ray Wilson. Alice Barlow. In 2011, Teresa McQueen, Georgie Porter, reveals that she has lost her job as Relish is closing down. Moops. Moops was a juice bar located in the center of the village, owned by Darren Osborne, Ashley Taylor Dawson. It was previously called the Octagon, which Tony Hutchinson, Nick Percard, had owned as part of Il Nosh, until Max Cunningham, Matt Littler, bought it, briefly calling it GNOT Nosh. Max and his friend Sam O.B. O'Brien, Darren Jeffries, named their new business Mobs, from conjoining their names together. After Max died in 2008, Steph Cunningham, Carly Stenson, inherited the business. Previous employees include O.B., Steph, Summer Shaw, Summer Strallen, Cindy Cunningham, Stephanie Waring, Mandy Richardson, Sarah Jane Dunn, Sasha Valentine, Natalie Emanuel, and Cheryl Brady. Brona War. In March 2011, Darren and Duncan Button, Dean Aspin, took over the business, renaming it Moops, which translates into Memories of Our Beautiful Steph. Duncan leaves in 2011 in the hope of setting up a new smoothie bar in Spain with Neville Ashworth, Jim Millier. In December 2011, Darren is forced to close down after failing to do enough business. In late March, after Ash Kane, Holly Weston, meningitis scare, it is shown to have reopened as a florist's. Myra McQueen, Nicole Barber Lane, previously worked there before she faked her own death in a bid to escape from Dr. Paul Browning. Joseph Thompson. It has been refurbished into a florist's, which is run by Trevor Royal. Greg Wood. Sincerity. Sincerity was a local boutique and former laundrette and tanning shop. As a laundrette, it was named Wash Up. Mike Barnes. Tony Hurst was the manager, with Tony Hutchinson, Nick Percard, as the owner. Ash Roy, Junaid Khan, later bought it from Tony, with Jackie McQueen, Claire Cooper, managing it. During Ash's time, he introduced a spray tanning option for customers, renaming it Tan and Tumble. When he left, he sold it again to Tony, who turned it into a clothes shop called Sincerity, ran by his then-wife Cindy Hutchinson. Stephanie Waring. After Tony and Cindy divorced, he said she could keep the shop as security for her and daughter Holly Cunningham. Lydia Waters. After Cindy left with new husband Alistair Longford, Terence Harvey, the shop was bought by Gabby Sharp, Fina O'Rouche, with silent partner Heidi Costello, Kim Tiddy, India Longford, Beth Kingston, also worked here until her death. Heidi is later murdered, leaving Cindy the sole owner of the shop. In January 2012, owner Cindy goes bankrupt and reveals she has lost all her businesses, meaning Sincerity is closed down. Synergy. Synergy, previously Look Sharp, was a day spa formerly owned by Tony Hutchinson, Nick Percard, and later by Cindy Longford. Stephanie Waring. A redevelopment of Tony's previous business, Il Nosh, which burned down November 2010. Synergy. Look Sharp opened in January 2011. In a special 3000th episode, the name Look Sharp was a dedication of his lover Gabby Sharp, Fina Rouge, and her family. The spa is often seen with residents coming to pamper themselves and get fit. Tony sold the business to his ex-wife Cindy in 2011. However, Tony remained manager. Tony is later replaced by ex-wife Mandy Richardson. Sarah Jane Dunn. Mandy once again leaves the village in September 2011. In October, both Teresa McQueen, Georgie Porter, and Rob Edwards, David Atkins, get jobs at the spa. In January 2012, after facing financial problems, Synergy was closed and was later seen boarded up. Other past employees include Noah Baxter, Law Thompson, Carmel McQueen, Gemma Myrna, Gilly Roach, Anthony Quinlan, and Bart McQueen. Johnny Clark. Synergy is later replaced with a new gym, Atwell's, where Carmel begins working. It is currently the restaurant Nightingale's. Hollyoaks Sixth Form College. Hollyoaks Sixth Form College was an exclusive college for sixth form students. It was opened in September 2011, which included students who have finished their education at Hollyoaks High School. There was also a number of new students introduced in September 2011, including Tilly Evans, Lucy Dixon, Maddie Morrison, Scarlett Bowman, and Martin Jono Johnson. Dylan Llewellyn. The set of the new college uses the same interior set that was used for the high school. It became a new focal point for the students of Hollyoaks. In November 2012, students Maddie, Jono and Neil Cooper, Tucson Cole, died after the minibus they had stolen crashed into a double wedding reception. A new set of teens also joined the college in September 2012, including Esther Bloom, Jasmine Franks, Ruby Button, Anna Schaffer, Phoebe McQueen, Mandip Jill, and Dylan Shaw. Mikey Reddington Smith. Tilly is expelled from the college in 2013 after art teacher Jen Gilmore, Amy Downham, reports her for harassing and stalking her in the college. However, she is reinstated when the tour about the affair came out and Jen is sacked and arrested. Sinead O'Connor. Stephanie Davis is expelled after her part in Esther's bullying ordeal is revealed. Current staff include English teacher John Paul McQueen, James Sutton, and newly hired headmaster Patrick Blake. Jeremy Sheffield, who replaces Mr. Keeler. Other past students include Duncan Button, Dean Aspin, Ricky Campbell, Ashley Margolis, and Lacey Kane. Georgia Bork. In 2013 the college was reverted to Hollyoaks High School, meaning it would once again feature all students in secondary education. Sioux Bar. The Student Union Bar is the local watering hole for the village's population of college students. The Sioux Bar is actually the same building that was used as Bar Brookie in Channel 4 soap Brookside. Previous employees include Charlotte Lau, Amy Yamazaki, and Justin Burton. Chris Fountain. In 2010, Cheryl Brady, Brona War, rented the bar for her, Shay Shay at the Sioux, whilst building work started on Shay Shay nightclub. In late 2011, Dodger Savage, Danny Mack, took over as trainee bar manager. As of 2013, the Sioux Bar is no longer featured on the show as the set is now used for the Dee Valley Hospital. Atwell's. Atwell's is a gym that opened in April 2012. It was formerly known as Synergy. In October 2012 the gym was auctioned and sold. Liam Gilmore, James Farrath, takes over the gym for a brief time, before he sells it to Tony Hutchinson, Nick Percard, and his wife Cindy, Stephanie Waring, who also starts working here. Past staff include Liam, Rob Edwards, David Atkins, Leanne Holliday, Jessica Forrest, and Teresa McQueen. Georgie Porter. Tony decides to transform the gym into a restaurant, which he calls The Hutch. In May 2016, This changed ownership and name to Nightingale's Carter and Hay Delicatessen. Carter and Hay Delicatessen was Sant Hay, Kieran Richardson, and Doug Carter's P.J. Brennan, New Delhi, where they served food. It was formerly a laundrette, called Washed Up, then Tan and Tumble, and then Cindy's Boutique. Sincerity. The deli opened on the 7th of May 2012. Barney Harper McBride, Tom Skerr, worked here briefly. After Sant discovered that Brendan Brady, Emmett J. Scanlon, gave Doug the loan to obtain the deli, he agreed to have to him as a silent partner, but quickly changed his mind and Brendan cancelled the debt. Leanne Holiday, Jessica Forrest, and Texas Longford, Bianca Hendricks Spend Love, occasionally helped out. Robbie Roscoe, Charlie Wernham, worked briefly as a delivery boy who was secretly using the orders to smuggle drugs for Sant. Robbie's brother Jason, Alfie Brown Sykes, took over as delivery boy for a few days before discovering the drugs he had been inadvertently smuggling. In October 2013, Doug was killed in a bomb explosion, leaving Sant to run the deli alone. In January 2014, Sant was left Doug's half of the deli in his will, but he decided to sell the deli because of the memories of him and Doug. A fire occurred in the deli the following month while Jason and Holly Cunningham, Amanda Clapham, were inside, damaging it and meaning the buyer did not want to buy the deli anymore. Dennis Savage, Joe Tracini, and Dirk Savage, David Kennedy, asked Sant if they can rent it out as an emporium and he agreed, renaming it Savage's Emporium. Florist. A new flower shop opened in early 2012 in the center of the village, replacing Move's Juice Bar. Ricky Campbell, Ashley Margolis, did work there until he left the village. Myra McQueen, Nicole Barber Lane, started working there in September 2012 shortly after leaving prison. Until September 2013, Martha Kane, Carly Norris, also worked here until she left. Teresa McQueen, Georgie Porter, worked here until she was fired when the place was placed under new management. However, they sold it to Grace Black. Tamara Wall, College Coffee, a new coffee shop opened up in late 2011, briefly managed by Tony Hutchinson. Nick Percard. It is to be used as a new hangout for the students in the village. There is no known employees working here. Previously employees included Tony, Amy Barnes, Ashley Slanina Davies, Cindy Longford, Stephanie Waring, Reese Ashworth, Andrew Moss, Jono, Dylan Llewellyn, George Smith, Stephen Roberts, Vincent Telegba, John O'Mole, and Maxine Minerva. Nikki Sanderson, who managed the place for a short period. In August 2014, Esther Bloom, Jasmine Franks, bought the coffee shop and renamed it Esther's Magic Bean Residences, 1 Stockton Lane, the house above the Dog in the Pond public house. It is the current residency for the Nightingale family. Previous owners include the Dean, Ashworth and Costello, and the Osbornes families. The home, along with the bar, was burnt down in September 2006, when 5 people died and several others were injured. When the Osbornes suffered financial crisis, they sold it to Neville Ashworth, Jim Millier. By 2010, all the Ashworths had moved out and sold it to Carl Costello, Paulo Passac, who moved in with his family. Following Heidi's, Kim Tiddy, death and Carl and his sons Jason Costello, Victoria Etkin, and Seth's, Miles Higson, departure, Riley Costello, Rob Norbury, decides to move out and asks the Osborne family to move back in and run the place for him. In summer 2013, Nancy Hayton, Jessica Fox, was kicked out of 1 Stockdale Lane after her supposed friend, Sienna Blake, Anna Passy, plotted and succeeded in stealing her life. Darren Osborne, Ashley Taylor Dawson, Sienna and his son, Oscar later move out after it is revealed that Sandy Roscoe, Gillian Tail IV, is his biological mother, and Charlie Dean, Charlie Bean, later joins them, but 2 months later, Darren, Sienna, Oscar and Charlie move back in after Darren and Jack sort out their issues. When Sienna's lies are exposed, she is sent to a psychiatric ward, and Darren and Nancy sort out their relationship, but it later collapses, resulting in Nancy moving back in and Darren moving out. They later reunite and Darren returns to the Osborne home. However, Darren later moves in the student house, and Esther Bloom, Jasmine Franks, then goes to live with Grace Black, Tamara Wall, and Trevor Royal. Greg Wood, after being kicked out by Frankie for being Grace's surrogate mother. Perry Lomax, Ruby O'Donnell, moves in 2015 after her mother Leela Lomax. Kirstie Lee Porter, lied about Cameron Campbell, Cameron Moore, killing her grandparents. In 2015, Jade Albright, Cassius Nelson, moves in after running away from her abusive foster mother. In October 2015, the Osbournes move out, allowing the pub to be taken over by the Nightingale family, consisting of Mac Nightingale, David Easter, his son Nathan Nightingale, Jared Garfield, his daughter Ellie Nightingale, Sophie Pawley, his adoptive son Alfie Nightingale, Richard Linnell, his fiancée Anita Kaur, Amrit Mahara, and Nathan's fiancée Rachel Hardy. Jennifer Brooke. In 2016, after arriving in the village, Ellie and Nita allow Mac's secret eldest son James Nightingale, Gregory Finnegan, and his ex-wife and mother to James, Ellie and Nathan, Marnie, Lysette Anthony, move into the pub, much to Mac's discomfort. In March 2016, Rachel is killed in a car accident caused by Holly Cunningham, Amanda Clapham, which devastates the Nightingales. Manny briefly moved out, but returned in September 2016. James, however, remained, not wanting to live with Mac. Nita moved out in September 2016 after discovering that Mac has anger issues. However, he then sleeps with Marnie and she moves out. Tabitha Maxwell Brown, Linda Gray, moved in for a week in November 2016, but moved out after an argument with Marnie a week later. 2 Oakdale Drive, former home of the Davies family, then the Burton and Taylor families. It was bought by the Valentine family in 2006. They left the village in 2010. Cheryl Brady, Brona War, lived here for a short period between 2009 and 2010, before moving in with Steph Cunningham. Carly Stenson. Cheryl moved back in with her friends and brother when the Valentines left. Cheryl kicked Malachi Fisher, Glenn Wallace, out when he made an accusation that her brother Brendan Brady, Emmett J. Scanlon, was the one who attacked her and stole lodgings from the club. Brendan moved out after he was arrested for the murder of Ray Wilson, Alice Barlow, and Cheryl later kicked Lindsay Nolan, Karen Hassan, out after her allegations against Silas Blissett, Jeff Rawle. Cheryl invited Gilly Roach, Anthony Quinlan, to stay with her after he moved out of the Osbournes. He later left the village for a new start. Lindsay moves back in after she makes up with Cheryl. In summer 2012, Lindsay is murdered by Dr. Browning, Joseph Thompson, and months later, Cheryl and Brendan's abusive father, Seamus Brady, Fintan McEwen, arrives in January 2013. Sees Joel leave the village while Brendan moves in with boyfriend, Sandhay, Kieran Richardson. Following the death of Seamus and Cheryl's departure from the village, it is currently empty. In September 2013, Danny Lomax, Stephen Billington, bought 2 Oakdale Drive as a love shaft for him and John Paul McQueen. James Sutton, Danny's wife, Sam, Lizzie Roper, and daughter, Perry Ruby O'Donnell, move in with him. After Danny's son, Sant lost his home after a bomb explosion there. He moved in with the Lomaxes. Danny's other daughters, Leela, Kirsty Lee Porter, and Tegan Jessica Ellis, move in along with Tegan's newborn daughter, Rose. Sant later moves out after not being able to cope with the guilt of knowing about Danny's affair with John Paul. Sam moves back in after attempting suicide when Danny and Sam are killed in a car crash. Ziggy Roscoe, Fabrizio Santino, later moved in when he got engaged to Leela and they later married. However, Ziggy moved out in September 2015 after admitting he doesn't love Leela anymore. However, Ziggy moves back in again after he and Leela rekindle the love. Ziggy later dies, and after reconciling with Leela, Cameron Campbell, Cameron Moore, moves back in. Sant later moves back in with his new boyfriend, Harry Thompson, Parry Glasspool. However, Sant is kicked out in March 2016 when Cameron frames him for using cocaine. Harry moves out with Sant after he was kicked out. However, Sant and Harry move back in a month later, much to Cameron's anger, after Cameron manipulates Sant into developing a crystal meth addiction. He and Harry move back out. But a month later Cameron's cousin, Courtney Campbell, Amy Connican, moves in. 3 Oakdale Drive, bought originally by Max Cunningham, Matt Littler, who lived there with his half-brother Tom, Ellis Hollins, and best friend Sam O.B. O'Brien. Darren Jeffries, Max's first wife Claire Devine, Gemma Bissix, lived there also but moved after they split up. O.B. then left to live with his girlfriend Summer Shaw, Summer Strallen, whilst Max's new girlfriend Steph Dean, Carly Stenson, moved in. Max died on he and Steph's wedding day in June 2008. His sisters Mandy Richardson, Sarah Jane Dunn, and Cindy Cunningham, Stephanie Waring, with their daughters Ella Richardson and Holly Cunningham. Lydia Waters, briefly moved in. Steph's mother Frankie Osborne, Helen Pearson, stepfather Jack Osborne, Jimmy McKenna, and foster brother Barry Newton. Nico Miralagro also moved in when they became homeless. In October 2009, Cindy moved in with Tony Hutchinson, Nick Percard, whilst Steph, Jack, Newton Tom moved into 65 Crystalton Terrace. The flat was then rented to the Roy family and Sant Hay. Kieran Richardson. In early 2010, Layla Roy, Lena Kaur, left for Paris and Sant moved back into his old flat. Jen Costello, Helen Russell Clark, and Eva Strong, Cherie Murphy, moved in during 2010. Jem later moved back in with her family. Ravi Roy, Stephen Uppal, later went to live with his family in Middlesbrough after his condition worsened. Eva and Anita Roy, Saira Chowdhury, later moved out. The flat was next seen when fitness instructor Noah Baxter, Law Thompson, and policeman Ethan Scott, Craig Vi, moved in, and they organized a competition for a new flatmate, which Doug Carter, PJ Brennan, won. Noah leaves for a job in Newcastle, Texas. Longford, Bianca Hendricks Spendlove, and Leanne Holiday, Jessica Forrest, move in after moving out of the student halls. Dennis Savage, Joe Tracy also moves in after arriving in the village. Ethan moves out after confessing to his hit-and-run crime. In summer 2012, Dodger Savage, Danny Mac, moved in when he and Texas became a couple. However, when Texas left with Doug for America, Dodger moves back into the Savage boat. When Texas and Doug return in January 2013, they both return to 3 Oakdale Drive, but Texas is subsequently murdered, leaving Will and Doug as the only real residents as Leanne is wrongly convicted of the murder. Leanne is released after Anna Blake, Saskia Wickham, admits to the murder. In September 2013, Doug moves in with boyfriend Sant, and the following month, a bomb is brought into the flat and explodes, killing Doug, Leanne and Ash Kane. Holly Weston, who lives the flat above. Dennis moves in with Dodger and Dirk Savage. David Kennedy. Shortly after, Trevor Royal, Greg Wood, moves in February 2014, his girlfriend, Grace Black, Tamara Wall, moves in. In January 2015, Trevor's son Dylan Jenkins, James Fletcher, arrives in Hollyoaks and moves in. Esther Bloom, Jasmine Franks, also moves in after being kicked out of the dog. Esther went into a coma in July 2015, whilst Dylan died in August. Trevor is murdered by Nico Blake, Persephone Swales Dawson, on his wedding day to Grace in May 2016. Shortly after this, Grace's half-brothers, Liam, Maxim Baldry, Jesse, Luke Jurdy, and Adam Donovan, Jimmy Essex, all move in to support Grace. Neeta Kaur, Amrit Mahara, moves in with Grace after discovering that her fiancé, Mac Nightingale, David Easter, has anger management problems. 4 Oakdale Drive, owned by Neville Ashworth, Jim Millier. It is the former home to the Owen family and now home to the Barnes family, who moved in when Mike, Tony Hurst, and Sarah Barnes, Louis Batley, discovered Kathy Barnes, Sarah Jane Buckley, had slept with Reese Ashworth, Andrew Moss. The rest of the family joined the pair and they decided to stay. Sarah died in October 2009 after a parachute jump that was sabotaged by Lydia Hart. Lydia Kelly. Mike invited Lydia to stay at the family home, not knowing she murdered his daughter. As a plan to prove Lydia had murdered Sarah, Zoe Carpenter, Zoe Lister, moved into the house. Mike and Zoe later left Hollyoaks, and Amy Barnes, Ashley Slanina Davies, moved in with Sant Hay. Kieran Richardson, Neville left, and Tony Hutchinson, Nick Percard, bought the house. Several people including Sant, Dominic Riley, John Percard, Jackie McQueen, Claire Cooper, Alexander Malota, John Lawless, Carmel McQueen, Gemma Myrna, Tina Riley, Leah Hackett, and Mandy Richardson, Sarah Jane Dunn, have previously lived in the house. In 2010, the Sharp family moved in with Tony. In November 2010, a fire had occurred in Illinois, forcing Tony, Gabby Sharp, Fina O'Rouche, and her children to move out. The flat was later refurbished along with Tony's new business. In 2012, students Barney Harper McBride, Tom Skerr, and Rob Edwards, David Atkins, rent out Tony's spare room. In late 2012, it is shown that Barney and Rob had moved out, as well as Cindy Cunningham's Stephanie Waring, daughter, Holly, Lydia Waters, returning and moving in with her mother before both move out in February 2013. Katie O'Connor leaves to live with her biological mother Sinead O'Connor. Stephanie Davis, shortly after birth, and Tony moves out after he assumes that Diane O'Connor. Alex Fletcher called social services about Sinead, but later moves back in after Tony tells Diane about his cancer. Sinead and Katie moved back in again after she was made homeless by the explosion, but after Diane finds out that Sinead is an ex-prostitute, she is kicked out and they move into the student house. However, Sinead later moves back in again. In early 2015, Tony moves into 17 Basswood Road after his affair with Sinead is uncovered by Diane. In May 2015, Sam moves here to be with Sinead and his child Hannah Hay O'Connor. Following his separation from his husband John Paul McQueen, James Sutton, Diane's nephew, Scott Drinkwell, Ross Adams, also moves in here. In September 2015, Sinead moves out and leaves Hollyoaks forever with Hannah after discovering that Sant is having an affair with Tony's son Harry Thompson. Parry Glasspool. Tony moves back along with Harry. Following his renewed marriage to Diane, Sant and Harry later move in with Sant's half-sisters, Leela, Kirsty Lee Porter, and Tegan, Jessica Ellis, next door. Much to Tony's anguish. 5 Oakdale Drive, Flat 1, formerly the marital home of Jake, Kevin Sacker, and Becca Dean. Ali Bastian, Becca's sister Nancy Hayton, Jessica Fox, moved in with them after Becca's affair with Justin Burton. Chris Fountain was revealed. Jake moved out and Justin moved in for a short time. However, Becca dumped Justin not long after. When Becca was killed, Jake moved back in with baby son Charlie Dean. Charlie Bean. Jake was later sectioned and Charlie went to live with Frankie Osborne, Helen Pearson, Hannah Ashworth, Emma Rigby, and Loretta Jones. Melissa Walton moved in. Nancy was later given custody of Charlie and she asked Hannah and Loretta to leave after a falling out. In 2010, Elliot Bevan, Garnon Davies, moved in along with Des Townsend. Chris Dedegan. In September 2010, sisters India, Beth Kingston, and Texas Longford, Bianca Hendricks Spendlove, moved in. By January 2011, Texas had moved back to the halls of residence with her mother Melody Longford. Sandy Hendricks. After the death of India in December 2010, Nancy allowed Suzanne Ashworth, Suzanne Hall, to stay there with her twins. Nancy surprised Darren Osborne, Ashley Taylor Dawson, when she moved out in January 2011 after living with Suzanne and the kids became too much for her, and a strain on her relationship with Darren, but she eventually moved back in after Suzanne returned to Spain. After realizing she couldn't afford the place if she and Darren wanted to live together, Nancy rented the house out to Mitzi, Rachel Shenton, and she moved into Darren's family home. Warren Fox. Jamie Lomas later moves in with her. Shortly before his son Joel Dexter, Andrew Still, arrives and stays with the couple. In December 2011, Warren moves out because he is arrested for the murder of his ex-fiancée Louise Summers. Roxanne McKee. Riley Costello. Rob Norbury did move in with his son Bobby in 2012. Mitzi was arrested in June 2012 after she was framed for stabbing Mercedes McQueen. Jennifer Metcalf. Riley lived there with on his own until Mercedes later moved in. In late 2012. In October 2012, the flat became unoccupied due to Mercedes being arrested for stabbing herself, Riley being shot and later dying, and Bobby being taken away with Carl Costello. Paulo Passac. On the 9th of November 2012, Mitzi moved back into the flat with her sister Maxine Minerva. Nikki Sanderson. Mitzi departs in February 2013, leaving Maxine as the sole occupant of the flat. Maxine asked her colleague Kevin Foster, Elliot Balchan, to move in but left when she kicked him out after he sedated her because she discovered he was helping his father to accomplish revenge on Brendan Brady. Emmett J. Scanlon, Patrick Blake, Jeremy Sheffield, and his daughter, Sienna Anipasi, move in with her, and Patrick and Maxine begin a relationship. Sienna moves into the Dog in the Pond after beginning a relationship with Darren, and Patrick later buys the flat after Nancy decides to put it on the market. Maxine moves out of the flat after being fed up with her abusive relationship with Patrick on their wedding day. He then manipulates Sienna and her teenage daughter Nico, Persephone Swales Dawson, to move back in, making them feel sorry for him. Ben takes the blame for Nico killing Trevor. Maxine later moves her fiancé Warren Fox, Jamie Lomas, into the flat. However, he starts seeing Sienna and the pair force Maxine and Minnie out of the flat. In November 2016, Nico died in a fire during the Halloween Spooktacular, leaving just Sienna and Warren in the flat. until Sienna tries killing Warren's son Joel, Brian Kirkwood, and Warren forces Sienna out of the flat, leaving just him and Joel. 5 Oakdale Drive, Flat 2. A new flat introduced in 2013. It is a dull, run-down flat that Cindy Cunningham, Stephanie Waring, and her daughter Holly, Amanda Clapham, move into after Cindy takes a job in the shop underneath and her ex-husband, Tony Hutchinson, Nick Percard, moves in after leaving his partner, Diane O'Connor, Alex Fletcher. In April 2014, Cindy and Holly move out of the flat and into the Savage family boathouse so that Cindy can show her commitment to boyfriend, Dirk Savage. David Kennedy. Cindy and Holly later move back in after they move out of the boathouse. After the fire at the boathouse, Dirk moves in too. Nick Savage, Dirk's nephew, moves in September 2016 after revealing he has been allowed to buy Dirk while he studies at university. After the Savages moved to Freddie home, Kim and Esther later move in. 5 Oakdale Drive, Flat 3. Previously occupied by Louise Summers, Roxanne McKee, and Warren Fox. Jamie Lomas. It was more recently the home of Warren, his sister Katie, Hannah Toynton, and her boyfriend Justin Burton. Chris Fountain. When Warren faked his death, Spencer Gray, Darren John Langford, was left the home in Warren's will. Spencer rented the flat out to former students Zach Ramsey, Kent Riley, Chris Fisher, Gerard McCarthy, Archie Carpenter, Stephen Beard, and Elliot Bevan. Garnon Davies. Elliot moved to Nancy's flat and Archie left Hollyoaks on 28 May 2010. Chris and Zach left the following summer after finding jobs in London with pal Zoe. In July 2012, Dr. Browning, Joseph Thompson, moved in shortly followed by Mercedes McQueen, Jennifer Metcalf. It is unknown whether the flat is occupied after Dr. Browning was arrested for Lindsay Nolan's Karen Hassan murder. Mercedes did move out to live with Riley Costello, Rob Norbury. Both moved back into the flat in 2013. After Browning's death, Mercedes moves back in with the McQueens. After the revelation that Sandy Roscoe, Gillian Tailforth, is his mother, Darren Osborne, Ashley Taylor Dawson, moves out of the dog with Sienna Blake, Anna Passy, Oscar Osborne and Charlie Dean, Charlie Bean, and into Flat 3. However, 2 months later, they return to the dog and Darren lets ex-wife, Nancy, Jessica Fox, move in. In 2014, Darren and Nancy split up again and Darren agrees to move out of the dog, leaving Nancy living there, but the couple later reunite. In 2015, Lindsay Butterfield, Sophie Austin, and Freddie Roscoe, Charlie Clapham, move into the flat but Freddie flees with Lindsay so it was left empty. Later, Lindsay returns without Freddie so she moves in again. A few months later, Freddie and Lindsay are evicted, leading to Simone Loveday, Jacqueline Boson, her husband Louis, Carl Collins, and her son Zach, Duane Bochy, all moving in. After finding the long-lost daughter, Lisa Loveday, Kizza Dean, Simone and Louis allow her to move in with them. It is later revealed that Lisa is actually an imposter called Sonia Albright, Simone's former colleague and Louis' former mistress. Joanne Cardsley, Rachel Leskovach, later moves in temporarily in an attempt to try and win Louis back. Joanne's flat is fixed from the flood and moves out. In 2016, the real Lisa Loveday, Rachel ADDG, is found, and moves in. 65 Christleton Terrace, located outside of the main village. It was previously owned by the Hunter family until the Ashworths moved in during 2005. After the Ashworth family moved into the Dog in the Pond, the house was rented by the Roy family. Ash Roy, Junaid Khan, left Hollyoaks and Bell Neela Alia, and Govinda Roy. Anthony Bunsey also left for Middlesbrough. Ravi, Stephen Uppal, Layla, Leena Kaur, and Anita Roy, Saira Chowdhury, were then kicked out of their home by Neville Ashworth, Jim Millier, as they could not afford the rent. The Osborne family then moved into the home. The family also took Duncan Button, Dean Aspin, in under their wing when he had nowhere to stay. Nev decided to sell the property in September 2010. The Osborne family struggled to raise enough money for the deposit, but Darren Osborne, Ashley Taylor Dawson, managed it by selling an antique that Cindy Cunningham, Stephanie Waring, gave him to remember her by, which she didn't know was worth £50,000. By raising the money, Darren finally received approval from his father, which he longed for a long time since he constantly let him down. Jack Osborne, Jimmy McKenna, threw Gilly Roach, Anthony Quinlan, out after his behavior became increasingly aggressive following Steve Cunningham's Carly Stenson death. Duncan's sister Ruby, Anna Schaffer, moved in January 2011. Also in January 2011, Duncan left the back door open and a squatter sneaked in and hid in the attic. After being caught and knocked out by Tom, the squatter ended up in hospital where she revealed that she was Frankie's long-lost granddaughter, Esther Bloom, Jasmine Franks. She is now living with them too. Darren, Nancy Hayton, Jessica Fox, and Charlie Dean, Charlie Bean, moved in after deciding to save money and renting out Nancy's flat to tenants. Duncan leaves after deciding to go to Spain. The entire family move out in December 2011, moving back in the dog in the pond after Riley Costello. Rob Norbury asks Darren to run the pub for him. The Kane family moved in shortly after. A new family, the Keens, moved into the house in early 2012, and Callum Keynes, Laurie Duncan, friend, George Smith, Stephen Roberts. However, Martha Kane, Carly Norris, is kicked out before Ash. Holly Weston invites boyfriend, Ally Gorman, Daniel O'Connor, to live with them. He is arrested in November 2012 and Lacey, Georgia Bork, departs shortly after, leaving Martha, Callum, George and Ash in the house. Darren is forced to evict the Kanes in 2013 after they continue failing to pay the rent. The new Roscoe family move in. Nancy moved into the house after returning from the warden Nana McQueen. Diane Langton refused to let her stay at the McQueen household. Joe Roscoe, Aidan Callahan, is left in a coma in the demolition of the council flats. In April 2014, Joe wakes up from his coma and moves back into the house, and following the death of Katie O'Connor, Sinead O'Connor, Stephanie Davis, and Freddie Roscoe, Charlie Clapham separate, leading to the latter moving back into 65 Christleton Terrace. In July, Joe ends up in prison for the murder of Fraser Black, Jesse Birdsall, and Mercedes McQueen. Jennifer Metcalf moves in with her boyfriend Freddie, much to Sandy Roscoe's Gillian Tailforth dislike. Joe is released and moves back in, and Sandy leaves Hollyoaks. Mercedes and Freddie do not last, and she moves back in with her family. Robbie, Charlie Wernham, and Jason Roscoe's Alfie Brown Sykes father Rick Spencer, Victor Gardner, later moves in and lives there until his death in 2015. In 2015, Mercedes McQueen moves in after she got kicked out of the McQueen house by Porsche McQueen. In March 2016, Robbie and Jason move out and move to South Africa to start a new life. Mercedes moves out in September 2016, and she found out Joe had an affair with Joanne Cardsley. Rachel Leskovach. Joe later died after falling from a Ferris wheel during the Halloween Spooktacular, leaving just Freddie in the house. 26 Lee Road, current home to the McQueen family, who have lived in the property since at least 1993, along with Myra McQueen, Nicole Barber Lane, Michaela McQueen, Holly J. Bowes, Tina Riley, Leah Hackett, and John Paul McQueen. James Sutton. Previous residents include Ross Owen, Stuart Manning, Alexander Malota, John Lawless, and Kieran Hobbs. Jake Hendricks, Myra through Alexander, Jackie McQueen, Claire Cooper, and Carmel McQueen. Gemma Myrna, out after finding out about the affair they were having. However, she allowed them to move back in when she realized it meant Jackie could go back to jail. Carmel also moved out in 2008 to live with new husband Calvin Valentine, Ricky Whittle, but their first marriage was short-lived and she moved back home months later. Mercedes McQueen, Jennifer Metcalf, moved out in 2007 to live with husband Russ, until their marriage ended when he discovered her affair with Warren Fox. Jamie Lomas. She was also forced to move out in 2008 when Jackie moved back in from Tony Hutchinson, Nick Percard, and said she'd only move back in if her cheating sister moved out. She returned in 2008, however, when Tony and Dominic Riley, John Percard, threw her out. Myra's niece Teresa McQueen, Georgie Porter, moved in during 2008. Malachi Fisher, Glenn Wallace, moved in during 2009. And Teresa's mother, Kathleen McQueen, Alison Burrows, moved in late 2009 and she left in early 2010. Calvin moved in for a short while until his death. Bart McQueen, Johnny Clark, moved into the McQueen home in August 2010 after his stepmother, Joan, died. Malachi moved out after his marriage to Mercedes met an end, and Jackie moved out after a row with Myra over Bart, who she claimed had stole her money. In October 2010, Teresa gave birth to a girl, Kathleen Angel McQueen. In 2011, the Savage family, Liberty Savage, Dodger Savage, Dirk Savage and Will Savage, moved in at the front of the house. In June 2012, when Myra is sent to prison for 6 months, Jackie moves back with husband Reese Ashworth, Andrew Moss, and Phoebe Jackson, Mandup Jill, while Michaela, Teresa and Kathleen Angel move in Jackie's flat. Jackie heartlessly also kicks out Liberty Savage, Abby Phillips, who lived here since 2011. Martha Kane, Carly Norris, briefly moves in as well. Reese is killed in a bus crash in November 2012, after she was released from prison. Mitzi, Rachel Shenton, is taken in by Myra and her sister, Maxine Minerva. Nikki Sanderson later joins her. However, days later Maxine and Mitzi move out and return to Mitzi's old flat. John Paul also returns, with baby Matthew in tow, and Tony briefly reunites with Jackie and he moves in before he is kicked out. In January 2013, Bart runs into trouble with Brendan Brady, Emmett J. Scanlon, and runs away from Chester. Nancy Hayton, Jessica Fox, later moves in after being kicked out of her home. In September 2013, Vincent moves away. Myra fakes her own death and Nancy is sent to a home for the mentally ill, but returns months later. Nanny McQueen, Diane Langton, however, refuses to let her stay with the McQueens. In 2014, Teresa is rightfully arrested for murdering Calvin 3 years ago. Kathleen Angel appropriately remains here in Carmel's care. Kathleen Angel's uncle Sonny Valentine, Aaron Fontaine, moves in after his work moves him to Hollyoaks. Alex Browning, Ojan Genc, briefly moved in here. In March 2014, John Paul is sent to 6 months imprisonment. In June 2014, Nana got into so much debt that the McQueen's home was repossessed and then bought by Grace Black, Tamara Wall, forcing the McQueens to move into the student house. Grace then eventually, with persuasion from Nana, decides to let the McQueens move back into the house, charging them rent. Myra returns in September and moves back in. In November 2014, Porsche, Twinnie Lee Moore, and Celine McQueen, Sarah George, moved in. In January 2015, Porsche and Celine's teenage sister Cleo, Nadine Rose Mulcairn, moved in, followed by their mother Renee Zoe Lucker, in May after being released from prison. In June 2015, Renee's ex-boyfriend Pete Buchanan, Kai Owen, arrives and moves in with the McQueens, much to Porsche's anguish as he sexually abused her at the age of 15. Diego Salvador Martinez Hernandez de la Cruz, Juan Pablo Yepes, moves in November 2015 with his girlfriend Myra, but is kicked out in October 2016 after Myra discovered that he is in fact a con man who marries wealthy women to steal their money and leave them afterwards. Mercedes moves back in October 2016. Her fiancé Joe Roscoe, Aidan Callahan, ended their relationship. Just after that she discovered he slept with Joanne Cardsley, Rachel Leskovach, while she was in prison for drug dealing. In November 2016, Myra's distant cousin Goldie, Chelsea Healy, and her two teenage twin sons, Prince Malik Thompson Dwyer, and Hunter Theo Graham, move in. 17 Basswood Road. While talking about Freshers 2013, Brian Kirkwood revealed that a new student house would be introduced and that Tilly Evans, Lucy Dixon, George Smith, Stephen Roberts, and new character, Jade Heady, Lucy Gape, would move into this new house. The student house was first seen in September 2013 after being purchased by Dennis Savage, Joe Tracini, for him and fiancée, Leanne Holiday, Jessica Forrest. However, after she sees how much of a dump it was, she decides they shouldn't move in. Instead, he rents it out to Tilly, George and Jade as a place for them to live as they attended Hollyoaks Community College. Jade is killed in October, and the following month, Sinead O'Connor, Stephanie Davis, and her baby, Katie, move in after being kicked out of her home. The mother of Matthew McQueen and the surrogate for Sienna Blake, Annie Passy, Chloe Chance, Susan Loughnane, moves in with Tilly and George after they befriend her. Tilly and Chloe leave the village together in January 2014. Sandhay, Kieran Richardson, and Freddie Roscoe, Charlie Clapham, later move in. Dennis allows Blessing Chambers, Modupadii, to move in after she loses her job and her flat. Sam moves back in with his dad, Danny Lomax, Stephen Billington, at 2 Oakdale Drive following his drama with Fraser Black. Jesse Birdsall. Katie dies of a heart condition leading to the separation of Sinead and Freddie, the latter of who moves out. Dennis moves into the house after deciding to leave the Savage family boathouse. Sinead later moves out and moves back in with Tony Hutchinson, Nick Percard, and the O'Connors. The McQueen family move in after their house is repossessed in July 2014. Tony is disowned by Diane O'Connor, Alex Fletcher, and moves in here and currently lives here with his son Harry Thompson, Parry Glasspool, Darren Osborne, Ashley Taylor Dawson, and Maxine Miniver. Nikki Sanderson, Cameron Campbell, Cameron Moore, moved in here after being dumped by his childhood lover, Leela Lomax. Kirsty Lee Porter. In October 2015, Jack Osborne, Jimmy McKenna, sold the pub, so he bought the premises and moved in with his family, his wife Frankie Osborne, Helen Pearson, his son Darren, Darren's ex-wife Nancy Hayton, Jessica Fox, Jack and Frankie's adoptive son Tom Cunningham, Ellis Hollins, Frankie's granddaughter Esther Bloom, Jasmine Franks, Tom's girlfriend Perry Lomax, Ruby O'Donnell, Nancy's godson Charlie Dean, Charlie Bean, Jack and Frankie's foster daughter Jade Albright, Cassius Nelson, Darren and Nancy's baby son Oscar Osborne, and Tom and Perry's newborn daughter Steph Cunningham Lomax. Perry moves out when she realizes she cannot be a mother to Steph. However, Tom is adamant to keep his daughter in his life, so she moves back in with her own family. After the Lovedays kicked Sonia Albright, Kizza Dean, out after they discovered she impersonated their daughter Lisa Loveday, Rachel ADDG, she moved in with Jade. Maxine moves back into the house with her daughter, Minnie, after Sienna and Warren Fox, Jamie Lomas, force her to move out of her home. Jade died from cancer in October 2016, and days later her sister Sonia left Hollyoaks Village for Belgium. In November 2016, the entire Osborne family vanish, leaving just Maxine and Minnie in the house. 14 Wearside View. After being kicked out by Mac Nightingale, David Easter, Manny Nightingale, Lysette Anthony, redevelops several riverside homes, in which she moves into one with her son, James Nightingale. In 2016, Manny moves back in with her husband. The two fall back in love, leaving James alone. After Joanne Cardsley, Rachel Leskovach, is kicked out of the Lovedays house. She moves in with co-worker James. In December 2016, Joanne is arrested for attempted murder. James begins a relationship with John Paul McQueen, James Sutton. He and his son, Matthew McQueen, move in alongside James. After John Paul moves to Singapore in March 2017, James is left alone. Former residences. Modern flat, formerly occupied by Claire Devine, Gemma Bissix, and later Niall Rafferty. Barry Sloan, Michaela McQueen, Holly J. Bowes, was also a resident for a while. Kieran Hobbs, Jake Hendricks, and John Paul McQueen. James Sutton also lived here until Kieran was murdered by Niall and John Paul left for Dublin. This was also used in Hollyoaks' spin-off Hollyoaks, in the city as Tank Top and Adam's flat. Flat 3, the flat belonging to Abby, Elaine Glover, and Daniel Raven. Chris Hargreaves, first seen in 2009. In July 2009, Sandhay, Kieran Richardson, and son Lucas, Jude Hawley, moved in. Due to Abby and Daniel's departures from the show, it has not been seen again. Halls of Residence. Student flat owned by Hollyoaks Community College. And other than the summer, it is generally occupied by 5 first and second year students at the college. Upon entering their third year, former second year students move into different accommodation to make room for new freshers. The residency of this flat is as tangled as the relationships of those who live in it, and changes often happen. In 2009, freshers Charlotte Lau, Amy Yamazaki, Josh Ashworth, Sonny Flood, Dave Colburn, Elliot James Langridge, and India Longford, Beth Kingston, moved in with second-year student Haley Ramsey, Kelly Marie Stewart. As of September 2010, Josh, Dave and India moved out. In September 2010, a new set of students moved in, including regular locals Darren Osborne, Ashley Taylor Dawson, Jen Costello, Helen Russell Clark, and Kevin Smith. Cameron Crichton. New residents Doug Carter, PJ Brennan, Jamil Fadel, Sikander Malik, and Leanne Holliday. Jessica Forrest, and returnee Lee Hunter, Alex Carter. At different times during the year, Doug, Kevin and Jem moved out. Darren moves out in 2011 and returns to his father's home. Leanne and Texas Longford, Bianca Hendricks and Love, later move out after completing their term as fresher students. Jamil also moves out after leaving the village, and Lee moves in with Amy Barnes, Ashley Slanina Davies. The new freshies Will Savage, James Atherton, Annalise Appleton, Tamarin Payne, Barney Harper McBride, Tom Skerr, Scott Sabika, Calvin Dember, and Rob Edwards. David Atkins, move in. Fellow student Ash Kane, Holly Weston, also moves in shortly afterwards. They all move out at the end of their first year and go their separate ways. However, Annalise and Scott remain until they find alternative accommodation. Soon after, Scott moved out after deciding to leaving HCC and Hollyoaks. It has since been revealed Annalise has also moved out. The set has not been featured since and will be replaced by a knackered, old student house in 2013. 28 Barrington Park. As of September 2010, a new residence was shown on screen with the O'Connor family moving in. Diane O'Connor, Alex Fletcher, offered to take Tony Hutchinson, Nick Percard, and the Sharps in after their home was destroyed in a fire in November, however moved out shortly after. After splitting with Diane, Rob O'Connor, Gary Cargill, moved out in January 2011. Jen Gilmore, Amy Downham, moved in as a lodger in April 2012. In August 2012, Jen's brother Liam, James Farrath, turned up and is currently staying there. Both departed in April 2013. The O'Connors move out in 2013, when Diane reveals that Rob is selling the house. They then moved in with Tony. 28A Fern Street. Originally occupied by Sant Hay, Kieran Richardson, and Amy Barnes. Ashley Slanina Davies. Amy moved out with baby Leah. Ella Mae Demacon, after being abused by Sant. Justin Burton. Chris Fountain. Then moved in after being homeless, and they were later joined by Dominic Riley. John Picard. After his wife Tina's, Leah Hackett, death. Dom later moved back in with his brother Tony Hutchinson. Nick Percard. Justin left Hollyoaks in June 2009 to start a new life. Sant lived there with Lucas, Jude Hawley, for a short while until friends Abby, Elaine Glover, and Daniel Raven, Chris Hargreaves, invited him to move in with him. Them unbeknown to Sant, a plot to take Lucas. Sam moved back in the flat in early 2010. Amy and the children also later moved back in. Amy and the children moved out briefly in 2010 after the fire in Illinois, but moved back in January 2011. Amy, Leah and Lucas moved out before departing the village in August 2012. After getting engaged, Doug Carter, PJ Brennan, then moves in with Sant. Leah and Lucas stay with the pair. In December, Doug and Sant's marriage breaks down and he departs for America while Sant reunites Brendan Brady, Emmett J. Scanlon, who moves into the flat in January 2013. In February 2013, Amy returns to Hollyoaks, and after learning that Brendan is living with Leah and Lucas, she takes Leah and Lucas and leaves the village again. Sinead later moves in after moving out of Tony's and then brings baby Katie to live with her too. The flat is destroyed by a bomb explosion in October 2013. This takes the lives of Doug, Leanne Holiday, Jessica Forrest, and Ash Kane. Holly Weston, who lives in the flat above. Following the explosions, the only remaining resident, Sant moves into Oakdale Drive with his newfound family, the Lomaxes. The flats are demolished in January 2014, with Joe Roscoe, Aidan Callahan, trapped inside. 28B Fern Street. The flat was owned by Neville Ashworth, Jim Millier. He rented it to Frankie Osborne, Helen Pearson, and Barry Newton. Nico Miralagro. In December 2008, after they moved from the Dog in the Pond, Frankie and Newt later moved out. When Darren Osborne, Ashley Taylor Dawson, moved in, Loretta Jones, Melissa Walton, was a lodger there for a short while, and Hannah Ashworth, Emma Rigby, moved in with Darren after they married, but she moved out following an eating disorder. Cindy Cunningham, Stephanie Waring, and daughter Holly Cunningham, Lydia Waters, moved in after Cindy's separation from husband Tony Hutchinson. Nick Percard, Reese Ashworth, Andrew Moss, and Duncan Button, Dean Aspin moved in after becoming homeless because of the sale of the dog. Darren moved in with Jack Osborne. Jimmy McKenna. A few weeks later, Reese took pity on love interest Jackie McQueen, Claire Cooper, when she had nowhere to stay after moving out of her family home after a row. However, it was clear he wanted to be more than just flatmates. Gilly Roach. Anthony Quinlan moved in after being thrown out of the Osborne's house for his aggressive behavior. Jackie moved out after splitting with Reese. Jackie then moves back in when she marries Reese. Jackie asks Lindsay Nolan, Karen Hassan, to come stay with them after she is kicked out by her friend Cheryl Brady. Brona War. Jackie moves out when her and Reese have marriage problems. However, she moves back in after a few days. Lindsay moves back in with Cheryl in 2012. Teenager Phoebe Jackson. Mandup Jill moves in 2012, after Jackie decides she wants to care for her. In June 2012, Jackie, Reese and Phoebe all move into the McQueen after her mother Myra is sent to prison, while Michaela McQueen, Holly J. Bowes, Teresa McQueen, Georgie Porter, and her daughter Kathleen Angel McQueen move here. After Michaela leaves and Myra McQueen, Nicole Barber Lane, returns from prison. Reese and Jackie move back into the flat, but when a pipe bursts they move back to the McQueen house. After returning and not being welcome at home, Teresa, Joel Dexter, Andrew Still, and baby Kathleen Angel squat in the flat. When Mercedes McQueen, Jennifer Metcalf, is released from prison, Myra tells her that she is to live in the flat and shortly joined by fiancé, Dr. Paul Browning. Joseph Thompson. After returning from Las Vegas alone, he moves back into his flat in Oakdale Drive. Martha Kane, Carly Norris, and her children, Ash, Holly Weston, in Callum, Laurie Duncan, move in after being kicked out of their old house. In October, Callum is stabbed with a Samari sword and killed, in the following week, Sinead O'Connor. Stephanie Davis, who lives downstairs, accidentally brings a bomb into the flat. It explodes and destroys both flats. This takes the lives of Ash, Leanne Holiday, Jessica Forrest, and Doug Carter. PJ Brennan, who also lives downstairs. Following the explosions, the only remaining resident, Martha, moves away from the village. The flats are demolished in January 2014, with Joe Roscoe, Aidan Callahan, trapped inside. Savage Family Boathouse. The boathouse is introduced in 2012. It is located in the pond outside the Dog in the Pond public house. Those who move in first are Dirk, David Kennedy, Will, James Atherton, Liberty, Abby Phillips, and Dodger Savage. Danny Mack. Dodger later moved out but returned to the boathouse when girlfriend, Texas Longford, Bianca Hendricks Spendlove, left for America. Liberty leaves in July 2013, and a few months later, Will is arrested for the murders of Texas, his mother, Anna Blake, Saskia Wickham, and Ash Kane. Holly Weston, leaving Dirk and Dodger as the remaining residents. Dennis Savage. Joe Tracy briefly moves in, and Dirk's girlfriend, Cindy Cunningham, Stephanie Waring, and her daughter, Holly, Amanda Clapham, move in April 2014. However, they later move out after Holly falsely accuses Dodger of raping her. Dodger's twin sister Sienna Blake, Annie Passy, and her teenage daughter Nico, Persephone Swales Dawson, later move in. The boat is later burnt down by Will, while taking Maxine Minerva, Nikki Sanderson, and Teresa McQueen, Georgie Porter, hostage. He also took Sienna Blake, Annie Passy, hostage there.